Welcome, everybody, to the May combined Denver Java Users Group and Boulder Java Users Group. I'm Greg Ostrovich. I'm your host tonight. Again, we're going to continue with our shortened format. It's going to take me less than a minute to go through our announcements, maybe two. Email us for topics. If you'd like to see something and we're not covering it, just let us know. Reach out on email or through the Meetup site. We shared a survey last month about meeting in person, and we did get some really great responses. If you have the link and you didn't reply, please do so. We definitely want feedback from everybody. Thank you to our sponsors, specifically like IntelliJ, Agile Learner gives away a subscription to BJug. Reach out if you want to win one of those prizes today. We will reach out on the Meetup site if you're interested, and then Mike will take care of that. It'll be first come, first served for prizes. Tonight's speakers are Karina Varela and Octavio Santana. Tonight's topic is going to be 4 key actions to level up the lifecycle of your cloud-native apps. And it's going to be about learning how to evolve your cloud-native apps using 4 levels of maturity. With that, your apps can be delivered in a more secure, reliable, and fast-paced innovation in the cloud. So with that, let's bring up our speakers, and thanks everybody for coming. Thanks to the speakers for logging in at an odd time for Octavio. So, and Karina is, I think, 8 o'clock. So.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good night, everyone. Good evening. Hello, Karina. How are you today?
Hello, David Jack. Hi, everyone. Good night, good evening, good morning. It's great to
Good
be here with you
wherever.
today, especially with you, Otavio, at 1 a.m. Thank you for joining also for this talk.
Yes, the pleasure is totally mine. So I try to don't sleep this presentation today.
All right. You won't. I
Okay.
bet you won't, because the topic is exciting. So I would like to ask our host to share my screen, please. So let's talk,
And by the
Otavio.
way, while it's
Uh,
loading, if you have any question, guys, the whole idea is to have a nice conversation. Please put your comment here. We are able to see, to read, and have a nice bar conversation, right?
hey. So yes, definitely. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop it on the chat, and let's get started, Otavio. And today we are going to talk about the 4 key actions to level up your life cycle of cloud native apps. And to talk about that, we have here Otavio Santana, who's a distinguished engineer, and he has so many awards in the Java world that it's even hard to count and list them all. To say some, I can talk about Java Champions and Duke's Choice Award. He's also super involved in the Java community, and he contributes as a committer to Apache, Eclipse, and Eclipse, like with a lot of accent, Eclipse, and also CNCF and Linux Foundation, where in CNCF and Linux Foundation, he's actually a member there. It's super cool. He's a project leader in the Eclipse Foundation, and in his free time, besides playing video game, he also likes to write about Java technologies on books and blogs.
Oh, yes. Right now, let's talk about the main character today. So, the main speaker, because she has high qualified skills to talk today. So, Karina Varela, she is principal technical marketing at Red Hat. If you never heard about Red Hat, basically, Red Hat is just the biggest open source company in the world. So, she received the organization recognition last year, the Red Hat champion. She has over 10 years of experience in the global scale application. So if you want to know about what she is doing, please look to the sky because she helped several applications that includes the aircraft control and management. She drives communities as well. So the key community, so Java, she instructor, and she do presentation around the globe. And yes, she writes several articles and books mainly about technology, right? But today is not to talk about us.
Exactly.
let's talk about how we can help you to achieve success in the cloud.
And
Let's talk
actually,
about cloud, Karina.
I love that we already have someone commenting here specifically about a topic that we're going to talk about. And Matt says, if it is not Webflux or native image, is it still cloud native, or is being a 12-factor app enough? Let's talk about that. And we love discussing what
Whoa.
it means to be cloud native, right, Otavio?
No, I don't, but we
Yeah,
should do it,
I
right?
know you do.
Come on.
So, but before talking about cloud native apps, we need to go back a little bit to get everybody on the same level of understanding. We should start talking about cloud first. So, why? Look, so what is cloud? So, cloud is basically somebody else's problem, as we'll see in a minute. But why is cloud and cloud native highly impacting organization success, Otavio?
Oh, because everybody wants something, right? We want to achieve successful in our organization.
Success. Yes.
And the success is amazing, but nobody has the right definition about success. And to put that simple in the plain way, success to us is when the organization achieve innovation with stability. That looks like utopia because okay, how can I become faster innovation without impacting any kind of stability, right? So that's the high definition or the best definition of success.
Yeah, if we look
However,
at the market, Otavio, for example, we will see that many organizations were already in the game, and then some startups started to play in the market and overcome those existing big enterprises. And why is that? Much of that success derives from the usage of managed services. Some of that they are saving their time and effort, consuming somebody else's work, somebody else is provisioning the stuff they're using, and they can work faster and improve faster. And regarding the stability piece, Otavio, why is this connected to cloud?
why? Because it's somebody else's problem, right? So I'm able to pay somebody else service to solve somebody else's problem. Actually, my problem. To I focus what matter to me. That's usually the business. I don't
Yes,
want to handle the hardware sometimes. Sometimes I don't want to handle the organization, the configuration, something like this. To focus what is core to me.
exactly. Also, because sometimes we are not an expert on that technology. So we see that
Yes.
cloud is moving or is helping organizations move faster, and we, in consequence, they can achieve their results faster, impact their customers' experience, and much more. With that, becoming successful. So, why, Karina, Otavio, I want to use cloud. Oh my gosh! So, that, like,
Yes.
how should I get started today? Kubernetes, Docker, everything I can. Oh my gosh!
Yes. Unfortunately, the real life is terrible, right? Because we went to several conference, several marketing campaign. Oh, okay. Kubernetes is so easy. Cloud is so easy. But why everybody's fail to make it the right way? Actually, is there the right way to move your application to the cloud? So we need to think about it because every time that I see an organization flying high and higher, they usually fall like Icarus because too closer to the sun.
Yeah, they think they can get there super quick and that it's easy, although they give us. So there are basically three things that can happen when you are in a journey to the cloud. Maybe you can be the team, the org that decides to move towards a goal that is way far further than you can reach, and you want to achieve it quickly, so you give a step that is way longer than you could do, and you end up falling. The second one, you think, also, I'm going to be conservative, I'm not going to try to reach like super goals, I'll just have something small that my team can achieve, I know they can do that. And then they end up having a step taking a step that is way shorter than they could do. Therefore, they are just wasting their team's like power. What they can produce, they're not doing what they can. And there's the third option where you can actually give a step. Hello, Robert. You can
Hello,
actually give a step
Robert.
that is the exactly distance that you could achieve. So how do you know which size is the step that you need to do? And what if the step that you're going to take is not taking you yet into your destiny? So maybe you want to do something that you cannot do like in this year, but what if you could do in 5 years and you know exactly what you need to do in this year? So let's talk a little bit about this. These are the four key steps, Otavio.
Oh, we did a spoiler. We
We
forgot
like
to mention the
spoilers.
spoiler alert. Oh, sorry,
Spoiler
guys.
alert. But why are we
But
doing that? Because it is important for you to understand the cycle that we are going to do here, okay? So, first of all, let's talk about uh, what is cloud. So, then we can understand how we can adopt cloud.
yes, we mentioned that before, right? So cloud is somebody else's problem. And the idea, okay, I know that is the NIST, the National Institute of Technology and Standards, but to us or in the business perspective, is somebody else's problem. We delegate to decrease the complexity, to put more abstractions, to focus more in what matters to us. So infrastructure as a code, as a service, sorry, is when we decided that hardware is somebody else's problem. We paid somebody else to handle things like energy, to have a place to put the hardware, something like that. Then we're able to move on to operations. That is a platform as a service. So we delegate the hardware plus operations. Here we can see several services such as platform as Heroku, and so on. In the latest one, we delegate basically everything. So knowledge, operation, and hardware. Okay. So you probably saw this analogy between pizza and service, especially in the user perspective. But think about the pizza restaurant perspective. So we are able to, okay, if I want to, I'm able to have a farm to handle the cow, to handle the milk, to prepare the cheese, or I can buy everything and make sure that my focus is on the right direction. And at that moment is to prepare the pit itself. So I don't need to have a farm. I delegate to have more abstractions, to have more less risk and more precision in what I want to do.
If you are like me and you cannot cook, you don't have the skills, you can just go out, buy it, have someone cleaning the dishes, and you can just consume it. So, some
Yes.
examples of, so let's actually discuss this a little bit more. So, when we need to talk about examples, so just to make clear, because I still see actually, I used to see and I still see a lot of different opinions regarding what is software as a service, that is SaaS. So, for in our opinion, software as a service is something that is already ready. You don't code. You just go there and you use Gmail. You use Spotify. Did you code Gmail? You didn't code. So it's an example of SaaS. So if you use Gmail SMTP, you're not coding the Gmail SMTP. You're just consuming it. So that is a good way to expose and give an example of what is a SaaS platform. But then we start seeing different offerings out there. We see, for example, Atlas, that is a database that is managed by someone and it runs on the cloud. What is that? Is that PaaS? Is that IaaS? Is that SaaS? We start seeing uh, offerings of Kubernetes, for example, that are managed by someone. You don't need to worry about Kubernetes. You just go in there, deploy your pods, you ask for a Kubernetes cluster, and it will automatically set up for you. So where does these technologies fit into these boxes here?
Okay, basically the somebody else problem philosophy has increased a lot, right? So right now we have several flavors, as Karina said. So we have the CAS, that is container as a service, that is a tight discussion where it should be. Right now it has more consensus that is between IaaS and PaaS, where it increase the abstractions to make easier to infrastructure as a service to handle the hardware, but it's no abstract enough to become a PaaS. So this guy here is a middle level where we have several samples such as Kubernetes implementations like OpenShift, Amazon EKS, stuff like that. In PaaS, where the main focus or the target are the developers. Uh, they have several flavors. So we have Platform SH, we have Heroku, but right now we have also uh, database as a service, where I have several flavors. We have Atlas, that is a MongoDB as a service, Astra, that is Cassandra DB as a service, and so on. Why it are they not SaaS? Especially as Karina said, the target to SaaS is a user, a regular user, where we don't need to know how to code or
The
how to
final
use
user, right?
the
The
real
end user,
final.
not the developer
Yes.
user.
So if I give a database to my mom, she's not able to do anything. But if you do this database to a developer, probably she'll able to create some information there, to put some bugs there. That's what we do, right? And and move on. But just the database is not enough to have a experience.
Exactly. And to list some examples of managed application services, we could talk about managed databases, like Otavio said. And all of these things, you will see that is like DAAS, so DAS, and all of these things, but I'm going to say the actual name because there are so many As that we cannot just differentiate in the end. So we can have, for example, the streaming platform as a service like Kafka. We can have databases as a service. We can have API management as a service. So these are some examples to list, but you can have many more stuff like decisions as
Yes,
a
we have
service, workflow as a service.
security maybe as a service. I guess Okta is following this path, right? I'm not sure, but I think so.
Otavio, so now we are living on prem. We know the type of offerings that are out there in the market. We know the level of abstraction that each option will bring us, and we can sort of starting to decide where we are going to put our application. But then we need to discuss what about the application? So the cloud native word.
Whoa.
So let's first understand what exactly is cloud native.
Unfortunately, Karina, I have a bad news to you
You don't
because
have a statement like cloud native is this? You don't have it?
no, unfortunately
Oh
not.
no. Damn.
And sorry, Matt, but I believe nobody knows exactly what does cloud native means. Especially because every book, every article has your own definition about cloud native. So, architecture and cloud native application has your own definition. The cloud native transformation as well. So
Even the
basically,
CNCF, because when in the past when we used to discuss, I used to say, "Oh, but the CNCF said this," but it's not yet an agreement amongst the tech community, right?
yes, exactly. And even the CNCF has a definition, something like, okay, the cloud native is one way to empowering the organization to make the application scalable, and it said something around multiple applications, scalable application, and at the end is abstract and a thousand of buzzwords in one own definition.
Exactly, Matt. Just put the microservice word there and bam.
Yes, exactly. So, and to answer your questions, I don't know what is enough because everyone has your own definition. I have my own definition as well. To me, cloud native is when I optimize my application in my organization and architecture definition through the cloud using three steps: containers, orchestrations, and automation. And answer your
Awesome.
question, to me, you are able to use Webflux if without native image, and it's still cloud native. Also, you use the good practice around the cloud. For example, the 12 factor applications,
I will
right?
go even further, Otavio. If you use Webflux or if you use native image or if you use 12 fact, it doesn't mean you're doing cloud native too.
Yes, because cloud native is a word younger than the 12 factor application, by the way. So if you take a look in the history, the time where uh, the Heroku defined it, the 12 factor application, it was in the time of the cloud friendly application. And it was inspired in the Mark Foley book, where at that time Amazon was so young and nobody was mentioned the cloud native or even cloud applications. So the answer to you is nobody knows. And please read these books, read even more definition to find your own definition, because right now cloud native become a hakuna matata definition. It's not a technical perspective, more it's more a philosophical perspective
It
on these kind of
has some
discussions.
technical perspectives there. Not only technical. So I agree with you, Otavio. And I just think that when you're looking at this topic, be aware of the marketing, right?
Yes,
Marketing can
be
be nasty.
exactly
So
as Math said. Oh, okay, right now everything that's is around microservice is cloud native. So, but it's not
exactly.
true. You're able
So
to use monolith with with
yeah,
cloud native as well.
exactly. Exactly. And you can have microservices that are not cloud native.
Yes.
So in the end, what is cloud native then? So let's I like very much the description from Otavio, the concept that he came up with. And I would add to it saying that whenever you have my mouth is dry, whenever you have an application that you are able to leverage the cloud environment without much effort, and the cloud environment can also interact with your application. Karina, how what do you mean interact? So do you have the liveness readiness checks for monitoring? Do you expose any metrics? Are you exposing in an API that is commonly used in the cloud environment? Are you exporting your configurations? So there are some technical stuff in there. 12 factor is a good example, but it's not the only way. And just have in mind that there's no concept established across the whole tech community.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yes. Let's move on. And let's go to the key of the presentation, right? How to start and how to move forward with cloud adoption, Karina.
Well, like, first of all, we need to
First of
understand.
all,
We need to drop
beware
some
about the
water.
cup. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
just drop some water on the ground. And then we can talk about the journey. So when you're talking about a journey, you need to know where you are going, but you need to know to define how you're going. You need to know where you are. So okay, I'm here, I am going there, and how do I get there? Let's talk about this in our scenario. To get started, how do you know where you are? And when I say you can think about your organization, your team, your startup.
Yourself.
Where am I? Oi?
Yourself as well.
Yourself? Yeah, I'm in Brazil now. So, well, so what? Where am I? In other words, in our context, what's my maturity? What is maturity? Maturity is a way that you can measure the the evolution that you are in a certain journey. Okay, so what's my maturity in a cloud adoption, for example? Do I have no adoption? Am I already using a lot of services everywhere, but I do not have any automation? So where am I? To get started, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can look at what people have done in the past that worked well. So there are several maturity models out there. And a really popular one is the Richardson maturity model that is around REST, implementation and good practices. And this is the one we are going to talk about.
Yes, yes, especially because I guess as developers, we at least read a single article around it that where we start from scratch. Our application it go through Hey to us, so we go to resource, ATP verbs, and finally finish with hypermedia controls in
What
our REST application.
what does this has to do with cloud, Otavio? The cloud, the
Because
glory of rest. So now what?
the idea is to do the exact same thing, where we're gonna do step by step to take the glory of cloud.
Ooh.
I know the name. We need to improve the name, right, Karina? Because it looks like a church, something of religion, but no,
Yeah, this is just a
it's
representation. So yeah,
yes,
don't
it's
worry
even
about it.
worse. It's cloud native, so you can put your belief on the cloud native words because nobody knows what is that exactly.
So as you see, we can also understand where we are. So where do I want to go? Well, you see five options here. I don't want to be on the known since I'm talking about cloud adoption. I want to be somewhere in between one and four. Okay.
In the
So where do
heaven,
I want to go? And not
I'm in
everyone,
heaven. Sorry,
not
sorry. Go ahead.
everyone has to go too far. You might want to stop at level two, and that's totally okay. Just know where you want to go. After that, you need to know, okay, so where am I? Am I at level zero, level zero, level one? Because if you know where you are, then you know the next steps to be taken. So let's start from scratch. Basics, level zero. I don't use cloud. Zero, Otavio. I don't use like anything all on prem. I am spending lots of money on data centers, hardware, everything on prem. Is that still a
So
scenario that you see? Here in
yes,
Brazil, it's pretty common.
it's pretty common in the whole world. So there is several research that said that probably next year, thanks to the pandemic situation, we gonna have more cloud application than on premise.
But
But
we
not this
more
year.
than,
Next year,
yeah, but more than if compared, right?
yes, more than.
Oh, so that's awesome. So yeah, cloud adoption is accelerating a lot due to pandemics. And so let's consider you're on step zero, level zero. What would be the first step for those who are in the level zero?
Whoa.
Start cloud adoption, Otavio. That's easy. So we already explained which are the types of services that are offered by many vendors out there. You need to do your own research, see what fits not only your technical goals but your pockets. Don't fall into the trap thinking that cloud is cheap. Oh, people are successful with cloud because it's cheap. It will be cheaper to run on the cloud than on prem. Not necessarily. So don't fall on that trap.
Yes, yes, exactly. Especially because we need to have more control, right? So it's not just about the adoption, it's about the abstraction, the right decision. Because sometimes we had to put too much efforts in something that doesn't make sense to our business as well. But yes, we need to think about cloud. You need to go deeply on the details. You need to choose the service that you would like to use, test it as well, and that is it. So let's
And you
move
don't
on to
need
the
to
next step.
migrate big applications, right, Otavio? Do we need to migrate a big application that we are running in production?
No, no, we are able to do step by step. So we can start with the peripheral application and then move step by step until you migrate 100% of your applications.
Or even just start with a small service that is new that people has been asking, and won't be hard for you to start with because it's a simple app. You can start it with new technologies, give some time for your team to learn about the technologies, because if you're talking cloud, you will probably start seeing the need to containerize, to automate. So you will feel some of the pain that is out there during this journey, and you will have the time to learn. Your team will be able to follow gently, without much pressure. See? So that would be also a good way to not only start, but to map the velocity of your team. All right. So
Let's move on
what
to
would
the
be
next step.
after that, Otavio? What do we have?
So we start from scratch, right? So right now we start to do the cloud adoption. We understood that cloud is important to us. Understood that to matters. And let's move to the next step. That is, okay, let's start to move a small step through the cloud.
Exactly. So when we give our first step, how do we know we are on level one, initial level of adoption? So we start to deploy applications on the cloud without adopting automation practices, or if you have, they are not, um, you cannot observe, or in other words, monitor, troubleshoot your applications that are running in the cloud easily. You still have some challenges there. And what would be some benefits to be on level one? Well, we can improve business velocity because it will start delivering faster the services that you are running on the cloud. So you can start improving your time to market there. And we can also reduce the costs if you start since then to track all the costs efficiently. What about security? Does it improve, Otavio?
Yes, indeed, it will make you safer, but you should need to pay attention on that. We're gonna talk a little bit about that deeper later. But yes, the security still matters. However, it's better in the cloud. And a good point to remember and to put highlights. Those topics is too important to us. So security is too matters. It doesn't matter if you're gonna use cloud or on-premise applications. The backup is too important to us, at least until we not delegate other service to somebody else. The recovery as well. I have this amazing failure case where the client that I had did the backup every single day, every single day, every single day. And the day that they finally need to recover the backup, they discover it in the terrible way, in the worst way, that they did not have backup of the data, but only the structure. And it's terrible, right? Another point, when you talk about service, it depends what we want to use. We still have to have a knowledge. For example, if you decide to use CAS, such as any kind of Kubernetes implementation, you still need to handle with containers. Remember that. So cloud is not magic.
It will help, but you also need to enhance your skills a little bit and worry about things. It's somebody else's problem, but part of it is still yours, right, Otavio? You still need to handle
Until you
some
don't
more
pay
things.
to somebody else. Yes. But for example, I don't want to have backup on my database. Maybe I
Mhm.
can use a database as a service and make sure by contracts the time of backup and how, when, the time to upgrade this kind of thing.
Yeah, indeed. So we have started to use cloud. On level one, you are already using some services, but you do not have the automation. So step two, automate. Okay. So on level two, on the second level of the glory of cloud, which is not such a good name on our journey to the cloud, um, you need to people, the companies and organizations who are in this level, they can already deploy not only the services, the application in an automated way, but they can even deploy the infrastructure. So you probably heard of GitOps and some stuff like this. So we can already use, when we are level two, not only the automation for deployments and software and testing and everything there on the software space, but also for infra. These deployments can be repeatable. And adding to that, You can do it on the cloud, depending independent of the vendor that you're using. Okay, so you're not just deploying automating deployments on prem. You're doing that on the cloud. And in order to achieve that, and you probably know this because we faced the same issue on on-prem environments when we started many years ago talking about DevOps. So breaking the silos is a way to improve this life cycle and the adoption of these practices. So, and by the way, before we move to the evolution of these cultures, understand that you don't need only to break the silos in between your infrastructure and your developer team. There are so many teams involved in the life cycle of an application that you also need to break down the wall of confusion in between them. So how did all this start in 2001, Otavio? With Agile?
Yes, crazy, right? It's a little bit even before the Amazon was born, the Amazon AWS, because everything is about integrations, especially with developers. So with Agile, we have the integration, a tight integration between developers and the users, where we put everybody in the same room to make sure the application is going to the right direction. Then we could see that, okay, Agile is amazing. We have the code ready. We understood exactly, but my code is not in production. So it's not enough. So in around 2010, there's a new word that is Devops Culture based on Agile methodology, where the main idea is to put the developers integrated with the operation people, with operation sides. It's amazing because they're able to automate everything using CI/CD that Karina will explain later. And it's okay, it's amazing. My code is finally in production as quick as I want, quick as I do my code, as quick as I put my code in production. However, we forget the security. And right now, we have a new word, a new trend that is DevSecOps, where I put tests and several optimization tests around security to avoid SQL injection, HTML injection, any kind of thing with automation tests. So think about a JUnity, but instead of code, it will check to data branch breach or any kind of code failure to any kind of security issue. And as you can see, Agile developers with user, DevOps, developers with operation, DevSecOps, developers with security team and operation team. Everything goes through developers. Developers in the center and must be integrated with everybody.
Yeah. And how do you make all that work? Because in the end, we are saying that people are working together and there's all this cycle. So a base technology or practice that should be adopted is CI CD, which is continuous integration and continuous delivery. You might be aware of this stuff, but I wonder if you are doing it from end to end, because you might have a CI and you have continuous delivery or maybe continuous uh, deployment, for example. So let's see here, what does this mean and what are the differences? So here we go. So when we are talking about CI, what does it mean to have CI? Basically, whenever I commit my code, I will have my my tool, my automation tool. Maybe it's Jenkins, maybe it's Tecton. And in the past, it used to be Hudson, right? Oh my gosh, I miss Hudson. So, so we have many different tools, and when you are automating those things, and I can talk about these tools in a second, but when you are doing your automation, you will the developer will commit a code, then you are going to grab that code, build it, run all the tests, do the security checks, like Otavio mentioned. We can have several here now. depending on the level of integration across their teams. And then you release. What is release? Well, you just tag it and you generate a release. Okay. So here in this life cycle, you can already guarantee that whichever version that is out there is already working. Why? Because you already have all the tests running, everything should be okay. Although the company doesn't feel very confident in having automatic deployments. So they decide to just have the package there, and when they want, they can just grab the package and do the deployment manually or with some scripts. But they want to decide when they are going to do that. So okay, yeah, and then we start talking about the continuous delivery. Okay, so when we are talking about continuous delivery, we go from end to end, with or without, and Otavio, you can correct me if you disagree with me, with or without approval steps. Because sometimes we need approval steps. Someone from the management team want to give the egg. Someone from the business team wants to give an egg before the code goes to production. So there are those who are brave enough and they trust their process enough to commit to main, go straight to production. That is continuous delivery, okay? And there are those who still want to have the approval step there. Do you think that with the approval step, we are still having a continuous delivery, Otavio?
Yes, I think so, because this approval process might happen as any kind of validation, such as a GitHub Actions to deploy my application. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
forbidden to have any kind of process in the middle, especially when you talk about the critical application one.
That is true. So I will go back to basics with you because you might be thinking that CI is just I put some hooks, web hooks on the main branch and let it go. But it goes way back to your coding practices. So you need to remember to commit code frequently without committing broken code. And then you need to commit code that has tests, unit tests for the win. Okay. So once you've committed, don't commit broken code. Don't commit without tests. All tests should be passing. And if you broke it, fix it. Otavio, have you ever committed a broken piece of code?
Yes, who never did that? Yes, I did that. Unfortunately, a couple times.
And there are people who goes even further with this CI. And this practices, by the way, I learned from a great book that is the continuous integration book. So there are people who go even further when they do not only automate the integration of the software, but also the database. So if you add a new column, this new column should be also part of this automation process and go through environment to environment if you are automating the whole delivery pipeline. So you can get quite addicted to automating. There's a lot to do there. And Jimmy, I'll keep on playing with the red dot for your cat, okay? So just before we move to the last step, Otavio, since we are talking about to the next step, I'm sorry. Since we are talking about cloud native technologies, what changes here? So when we are talking about cloud environments, you might not want to have a huge server there doing all the automation, consuming a lot of resources because resource is expensive. So you want to save your money there. So how do you automate in the cloud? First of all, there are different tools that you can use where every step of your automation can run in a different container. As it finishes building the application, another container will start up to do the tests, and then another container. So each step will be executed in a container that is volatile and dies right after it finishes the job. A tool that can do that, for example, is Tecton. So Another thing, when you're coding applications, you're only thinking, well, I need to do Maven clean package or Gradle, whatever, get my jar, put or my war or my ear, put it into the application server or put it into the server, and that's it. When we are talking about cloud environments, you probably start talking about images. So there are different practices also around the way you build your images in the CI/CD pipelines. So there are practices on how you have an image just for the build time, an image just for the runtime. What do you put in the image? What don't you put in the image? Should you worry about the size of the image? Why? Where is your image going to be stored? All of this is part of your CI/CD now. Adding to the software, adding to the database, and adding to everything else. Now you also have to worry about the images, where you store it, how do you version it, and so be aware of that. So moving from level 2 to level 3, moving from level 1 to level 2 is not that easy, okay? Depending on how freaky you get about automation, you might get you use some time there with your team. Then we go to the level 3, Otavio. Are you still awake? I know it's super late for you.
Because I forget to automate my mute button. I need to do it manually. And yes, my podcast application is not following the four steps.
Oh my gosh. So what about level 3? Like we have automated everything. Our delivery is automated. What else is there to do, my man?
Oh, we need to make it observable and modifiable.
What does that mean in the end of the day?
Oh, basically, we're gonna start with what we do with the code. We're able to do with the infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
especially because you need to make sure that everything that's run in server machine works in my machine and vice versa. It's adios amigo to it only works on my machine, or in my machine it works. So the idea is to convert all the infrastructure details to a code.
But
This
wait,
way,
wait. They said that about containers. What changes here? Because they say that containers also finishes that problem. But when you deploy a container, it's not the only thing, right? So you're talking about something bigger. Is that right?
yes, exactly. The containers, the container configurations, the container communication, the container gateway, everything. And when I say make it observable and modifiable, think about right now we are in Java 17 and we are using for some reason Java 11. And we want to make sure that everybody's moving to Java 17. So I'm able to create a PR with that upgrade of Java version and test it even in production. If it does not make sense, I'm able to create a modification to return to the previous version.
So
So
basically, you're saying that you will do PRs to change the infra.
exactly
Lovely.
exactly like we do, or at least we supposed to do with code,
That's
with
very
software
cool.
code.
I have
Yes,
been working recently with something like that, but with Helm. It's super interesting. It works exactly like that. It's lovely because we can deploy everything together: databases, services, Kafka connectors, Kafka stream, everything is in there. And you just need some configurations on the Helm, and then it's beautiful.
and it's done, right? So yes, we have several tools. Yes, infra as a code. So we have several tools here. We have Terraform, Amazon CDK, uh, um, Helm, and so on,
Ansible.
Ansible, and so on. So you have any kind of flavors, please use the one that you enjoy. But we have a new evolution. To me, it's become my favorite addition to infrastructure side. That is the GitOps. Basically, we are able to integrate several layers in one single word. So GitOps to me is when I have infrastructure as a code with pull requests or modification requests with continuous integration and continuous deployment. Because this way I have the Git to both to the software modification and the infrastructure modification. So the Git is a single source of truth. The Git is the unique place to operate in both situations. And all changes are observable and verifiable. Like I said, I went to create a PR with the latest Java version. I can test. If it don't make sense, I'm able to do the git revert and move and keeping the previous version of Java.
Exactly. This is super cool. And as you see, as we start to automate and as you start to expand the number of services that you have running on cloud environments, you will need this type of things. How would you go to a microservices based architecture, for example, and how would you handle hundreds of services deployments? What if all these
Oh,
services were deployed every day or every 2 days? It's like impossible to handle. So that's why you start needing these types of things that we are showing here. So it's a natural progress, natural evolution towards these paths. So once you reach this, you have already spent some time, you have learned a lot, and you start to see, Otavio, some challenges on a vendor that goes off, stops working, even though it's 99.999. I don't know that number. Do you know? The high
no.
availability? Yeah, there's a number for that. Like, and I don't know how many nines there are, but there are many nines in there. They can still go down. If you're a bank and your services go down for 1 minute, 1 minute, that's already enough for you to
To
lose a
a
lot of money.
single second, even a single second is a terrible
Even a
mistake.
single second, exactly.
It's a
So
nightmare.
you start, as you feel more comfortable in this environment, you start to expand your boundaries. What does it mean to expand my boundaries, Karina and Otavio? Basically, you will move towards the last level, that is the optimized usage of cloud environments. And that means that you can use hybrid clouds, multi clouds. Isn't that the same? No, it's not. I'm talking about using what is the multi cloud? You are using different types of cloud. We don't have this slide on this one, right, Otavio? Let me see. No, we don't. So let me quickly go through this. When you are talking about using multiple clouds, multi-cloud, you have a private cloud, maybe a public cloud. So you can have a private cloud that is managed by someone. There is also possible that that type of service exists. So you are deploying the same service on different types of cloud. When you're talking about a hybrid cloud, you're talking about using the same service from different vendors. So you want to use a managed database, and then you want to use. Do we have two types of the same type of database, Otavio? Like document type? No, but let me give you another example. Kafka.
No, no, we indeed we do. We do, sorry.
That well, managed. So like Atlas, is there a
Yes, probably it does. Probably does. Even with the license changing, especially in the MongoDB case, probably still have several implementation only to MongoDB. For example, you have Atlas, and we have Microsoft with Cosmos DB that has one API to works looks like Mongo.
Yeah, so that would work also. The same application could use both. Another example is Kafka. You can have managed Kafka by Red Hat or managed Kafka by Confluent, for example. So you would be using Kafka brokers in two different vendors, two different services, same topics. Your service is consuming them. So if one goes down, you have the other. Okay, so this is what hybrid cloud is about. And you can use multi or hybrid or and hybrid without feeling impacts on the monitoring, on the troubleshoot. You can find the issues there, you can track the business KPIs. This is the state of um, art, in our opinion, for the best cloud usage from organizations. So you get rid of vendor locking when we are talking about hybrid cloud, for example. I just mentioned two different vendors. So if one starts to get too expensive, drop it, go to another one. You still have your service running here. So you don't need to be locked into a vendor. And then there's another thing that is important to discuss, right? About popularity.
Oh, there is no discussion about that. It's a fact. You need to avoid any kind of mistake around popularity and standard. Just
No, no, no,
because,
but it's a standard to use Docker for containers. It's a standard.
yes, no, there's no
No, no,
standards
no,
on
no.
Docker.
It is, but it's not. I am kidding.
Uh, Basically, popularity, like Windows was the most popular system operation, but it does not mean that it was the standard tools to that. It also happened with Docker. Right now, I know Docker is the most popular, however, it's not the standards. When you talk
So what
about
is the
standards,
difference? What is the difference?
standards is one way to make sure that we're able to choose between multiple vendors. For example, Java. Java we're able to use the JVM from the OpenJDK, the hotspot by Oracle, previous Sun, the J9, the Azure, and so on. So right now we have over 20 JVM implementation. Thanks to the API, we're able to switch between them. It's happened also with HTML5, where we're able to choose several interpreters such as Firefox, Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, and so on. Microsoft Edge, and so on. Java, as I mentioned before, Jakarta E, where we have several vendors implementations, microprofile, the Open Container Initiative, as well the ECMAScript with JavaScript implementation. The whole point is when we talk about standards, it's heavier than popularity because standards allow me to switch or swap easily between technologies, where a
Go ahead.
popular framework does not
Yes,
provide that.
exactly. Oops, I think he's breaking up. Okay, so yeah, okay, we're back. So one thing to notice then when you start using technologies, I Karina, but I love Docker. Use Docker. It's okay. Just try to know which are the specific features that you are using that are only working in Docker, because I know that there are. So we are talking about OCI, the Open Container Initiative. So OCI, for example, has several different tools that supports building images, several different tools that supports running the containers that are built based on these images. So if you are working with things that are based on these standards, you will be safe. No matter which tool you are using, you should be safe. Okay. So cloud native, cloud native, cloud native. There are many tech, technologies targeted for the cloud. And Otavio, you are part of CNCF, so you're way better than me to talk about this. Go ahead, this is your thing.
Okay, as you can see here, we have several tools. Populars, other ones are standards. The whole point here is we're able to use open source to go through several cloud providers.
So to be
So
part of CNCF, it needs to be open source.
yes, as far I know, until now, yes. But as any kind of API or specification on a CNCF, yes, you can create your own implementation as a private or proprietary license. But the specification not. You should use an open source license.
And it's very cool because I've been joining some. Actually, I saw the birth and the childhood and now the adult phase of one of the specifications that are part of CNCF, and the process is very open. So if there is any technology here that you are interested in, you can even join the calls to discuss. There are many open the calls that are open for the community where you can join, understand what's going on, help or contribute, and start acting more on this open world for cloud native. So let's do a recap so we can wrap up right on time. So these are the maturity levels where you can find your organization in, so you can define where to go next and which are the steps that you can give to get there. Remember, when you have a flight that goes from Brazil to Poland, if I want to go to see Otavio now, it's not, there's no way I can go in a single flight. There's not enough fuel in the same airplane, or there's not a it's not possible for the crew, whatever it is. It's not possible. I need to have many legs. So in order to get into your desired destination, remember, you can have an iterative process where you increment step by step until you finally get there.
And that is it. So thank you, everybody. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the presentation today. And if you have any question, please let us know. We are happy to answer of that. Is for sure share knowledge, share experience in our Twitter handle. So please
Remember
follow
to
her
follow Otavio.
and please follow her as well, Karina Varela. But instead of A, we have the four.
Thank you so
Don't
much
ask
for
me
being
why.
here with us today, guys. It was a pleasure to be part of this awesome jug. Even though remotely, we might see each other in person someday. Looking forward to it. Thank you for the
Yes.
opportunity.
Thank you so much. Let's get the other jug leaders up here. I got Chris from the Boulder Jug,
Hello.
and Greg's not showing his camera, so I'm not going to add him and just show his empty background. Oh, there he is. So I'll add him up here.
Sorry, I muted it and turned off the camera during the talk. So,
Oh,
No worries.
don't worry.
hey, sorry that I had
Okay.
your wrong Twitter handle. Glad that's being shared. So, I'll try to update on my tweets.
Well, thank you so much. That was excellent. So I don't know if we have any questions rolling in. Matt Henry does have a OH question. Here we go. So are data stores like Kafka and DBs using Kubernetes operators prod ready in your opinions?
Well, I see Streamzy is a way to deploy Kafka using operators, for example. I see some level of maturity there, yes. And remember that operators have its own maturity levels. So if you look at it, there are the levels that like it automates just some step of the application lifecycle, so it can deploy more. It can upgrade the application version, minor version, and then it goes. So if you look, and why do I say Streamzy? At least Streams is the one that I can talk about that I know about. Why do I say it is going to to a prod ready scenario? Because we have an enterprise version of it in Red Hat, and everything we do in enterprise we give back to the community. So it's a two-way flow. If it is enterprise, you can find a similar version in the open source. So that's why I'm talking about it.
Yes, on my perspective, yes. Right now in the company, we have a team of platform engineer who is using Kubernetes operator to make sure everybody's in the right version, especially when talk about finance industry. Security matters a lot. So if you have any kind of CVE, we need to make sure that everybody's not using that version. So to make sure that we are using Kubernetes operators.
Yeah, there's not only operators also. There are those who hate operators and love Helm charts. So there's a good scenario for each tool.
Yes. So yes, the answer is yes. We are using Karina and I in different clients in different companies because we are in different companies, by the way. And but unfortunately, I'm not able to share the code that they are doing. But they have so far so good.
So I like your comment about the finance industry and security because, as a security professional myself, I find that banks are the least embracing of security standards. Right? Like, it's funny that your bank, like, if you integrate
Oops,
with right,
don't
there's
say
no
that.
OAuth, there's no OIDC, right? They still like require your credentials and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny, but we got a nice comment from Matt Henry here. Great,
Thank
thanks,
you.
very informative. Thanks for
And yeah,
jumping.
the biggest issue with the finance bank, and I can say by myself because I worked in finance industry in several countries, and basically it follows the same path. They become huge, they put a lot of bureaucracy, and this bureaucracy to uh, pretend to be safer, it becomes more enemy than ally in several cases because you're not able to ally, we're not able to update, to do upgrades, to try to move it fast.
So agile is
That's
basically impossible because of bureaucracy.
yeah, the agile is impossible there.
Right.
And thanks to the fintechs, right now they must move faster, especially because every time that it has a security data breach, they lost a lot of reliability in the industry against the fintechs. So they don't have another option. They need to survive, right? So they need to move more faster than the past.
Right.
Good
It's
thing we
funny.
have.
And
I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
no, fintech, right, stands for financial technology, right? For people that are, unfamiliar. It's funny here in Colorado, we have cannabis tech, right? So it's
You
people
have
that
what?
do
I'm sorry.
cannabis, marijuana, right? Like,
Ah!
Ah, okay.
so there's
What?
a
How
whole
does that work?
there's a whole tech industry around marijuana, right? Trying to help the marijuana businesses actually, be more successful and all that. So even though
Interesting.
it's happened in finance, it's happened in other industries too.
Yeah, but that these big companies, they don't stay behind. They are really aggressive on their strategies. And I am personally working with several in different countries, like different continents, where they are looking towards all this stuff that we are talking about, like managed services, managed cloud. And then the thing is that I thought the developers would kind of hold back and push back a little bit on that because of the, especially on these big enterprises, we have people who are more conservative, but they are actually loving it because the experience with Java when you are working with all the new stuff is just amazing, right? So they want to move fast as move forward as fast as possible just to get all the new goodies from Java technologies.
Right.
Uh,
There's
I
there's a
need to
lot of
be
goodies out
honest.
there. I mean, another goodie that I want to mention was the Apple M1. So I'm on my old like MacBook with Intel, and this StreamYard actually draws it to a crawl, so I can barely do anything. But on my M1, it's like if you're a Java developer, like look at getting an M1 because it'll change your life. You can do like everything twice as fast.
Or maybe start to use, I don't know, the new JVM that make everybody relax. The marijuana VM. So
That hasn't been
Otavio, not
released yet.
even this hour you can stop with the jokes, right? Like
So with that VM, are we saying the grass is greener on the other side?
it's a total green environment as well. Yes.
Yeah.
awesome, very good. Ah, awesome.
Nice. Well, let's wrap this up. Chris, do you have any comments or questions?
No, no, I just really enjoyed that. I'm getting into Google workflows and GCP and GCS and all of that. So I'm right in the middle of it.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the interaction between you two and how you kind of, bounced off each other. I think you did a really excellent job. So thank you.
Yeah, well
Our
done. Thank you so
pleasure.
much for coming.
I'll go ahead and end the broadcast. And thanks, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Good night.